There are no signs of a real withdrawal of Russian troops from the Ukrainian borders. This was stated by President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy in an interview with the BBC. He noted that so far these are only Russian statements, but when the troops really move away from our borders, this, according to the president, will be seen by everyone and not just intelligence. The Supreme Commander-in-Chief observed the tactical exercises Blizzard 2022.
Congratulations to all. I saw wonderful exercises. Thank you for the quality, for defending our state. Looking at you makes me feel myself confident in the future, and today as well.
Sankivka is a Ukrainian three-way border crossing between Ukraine, Russia and Belarus in Chernihiv region. The border has been heavily guarded since 2014, but now they have become even more vigilant given the military exercises Russia and Belarus conducting just in 50 kilometers away from the border. They also take into account risk of the possible attack stated by American intelligence agencies. The situation at the border is stable and under control. Border protection is carried out in enhanced mode. Due to the available information, we have now increased the density of the state border protection, increased border patrols. Response teams are ready to act swiftly in case of changes in the security situation. There are no queues at the checkpoint, the border guards assure. At the same time, trucks in a 2-kilometer queue are waiting to leave Ukraine. Drivers are not talking to the camera. Russia checks for a long time. Since 2015, the Ukrainian checkpoint has no connection with the Russian checkpoint. Our border is also separated from the Russian Federation by an anti-tank ditch. But now Sankivka guards are paying increased attention to strengthening the section of the Belarus border. And here is the Chernihiv checkpoint. In the past, residents of the nearby villages used it on a regular basis. 1 kilometer away to the nearest Russian village. Now the crossing is not functioning. Border point is serving as a base for servicemen of border guarding units. Mikhailo has been living near the checkpoint for 50 years. He says that the news about a possible Russian invasion forced some of the neighbors to finally leave already half-deserted village. He says that there is no normal communication line, no store here. Routine leaves no time for wartime worries. I don't believe anyone will attack. There is no information about someone is getting armed here. It's quiet here. Who has the opportunity? Who has relatives? They have already left. Someone just came up with such a fairy tale idea. The mood of the locals is patriotic. They say they will resist if necessary, but they consider information about a possible attack rather manipulative.
I'm not afraid, but I worry about the children, about Ukraine. We are not afraid. We know that this is all a lie, a provocation.
Russian television works here. Many have no other sources of information, so the district administrations inform and warn about everything in order to prevent any panic. There is no panic, there is no news for us. The fact that we have a problematic neighbor, the administration in turn constantly informs about risks about the northern neighbor. The situation is completely under control. The border service of Ukraine says it is ready for any development of events. There is no reason to worry now. Reported by Nick Starkov for UATV News.
Amid reports of a threat of Russian invasion, the president of Ukraine signed a decree launching the Day of Unity of Ukrainians on February 16th. He called on Ukrainians to stay together and stressed that our home is Ukraine and it is possible to protect it only by uniting.
We are united by a single desire to live in peace, to live happily, with family, with children, with parents. And we have every right for all this. Because we are at home, we are in Ukraine, and no one will love our home the way we love. And no one but we can together protect our home. Happy Day of Unity, blue-yellow. Happy Day of Unity, Ukraine. East, west, south, north sounds only together and sounds strong.
Parliamentarians and ministers joined the marathon. The Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Oleksiy Reznikov, reminded that the basis of the country's defense is the armed forces of Ukraine. Last year, their number was 250,000, and since January 1st, the number has increased by another 11,000. He also noted that the Ukrainian army is stronger than ever, and the situation on our borders remains stable.
Our intelligence sees everything. We are in constant contact with partners. Our data match, and Ukraine is ready for any scenario. We have already received more than 2,000 tons of modern weapons of ammunition, Javelin, Stingers, already transferred to the troops, and our soldiers have already mastered them. Ukrainian Bayraktars are ready in service in the sky, and a plan for their production will soon appear.
The Ukrainian army is the brightest example of unity for Ukrainians. Allied Commander Lieutenant General Alexander Pavlyuk stressed that since 2014 the armed forces of Ukraine have been feeling the support of the Ukrainian people on a daily basis.
In 2014, when we stood up to defend our homeland, only thanks to the unity of the entire Ukraine we received help in everything. But first of all, moral support, because behind us are our relatives. There are Ukrainians whom we have to protect, who give everything just to make the armed forces survive. Due to this, we have been deterring the aggressor for 8 years.
For centuries, Ukraine has fought for independence and managed to win it through unity. This was reminded by Vice Prime Minister of Ukraine, Minister for Reintegration of the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine, Irina Vereshchuk.
Ми сильні, бо ми єдині.
We are strong because we are united. Our strength is in our unity. Everything we do today and what happens tomorrow depends on us. We build our future. We know that we have a state, we have a president around whom we need to unite, and it will save us. When we are united, we always win. In 2014, Russia had intentions to divide Ukraine, but these plans were stopped by Ukrainians. The Day of Unity is also a reunion of friends, and visits to Ukraine by distinguished guests prove that Ukraine is supported in the world.
We launched network diplomacy. Not a word without Ukraine about Ukraine. No decision on Ukraine without Ukraine. And we have known during these months, through network diplomacy, what Russia will say to our partners and what our partners will say to Russia.
Ukraine has already received modern weapons and financial support from international partners. The European Union has provided €1.2 billion to Ukraine. There are also $1 billion in loan guarantees from the United States. Ukraine's allies thwart Russia's plans to undermine Ukraine's economy, reported by Ksenia Bugay, Svetlana Sich, UATV News. Russia's attempts to rewrite the European security order unilaterally and by military means are unacceptable. This was stated by the head of the EU delegation to Ukraine, Matti Maasikas, during the ceremony of laying flowers at the memorial wall in Kyiv. Lithuanian parliamentarians were also present there. Due to alarming information from the Western media, politicians decided to support Ukraine in Kyiv.
Attempts to rewrite unilaterally and by military means the European security order are unacceptable. And this is not working. It will not work. But we are all very worried, and we are all struck by how you can how you can put pressure on your neighboring country by amassing troops at the borders. We are experiencing what effect this has on Ukraine's economy, energy-wise, and so on. So even without a direct military aggression being stepped up, the damage is already huge. You are resisting already. And by making your preparations and staying calm, you have achieved already a lot. And that's the best possible preparation.
Russia probably is bluffing and wants to get out of the table with something more in their pocket. Mr. Putin is pushing the whole world, and we need to resist this. We, as Lithuanians, very well know what the Soviet Empire was, and the roots are still the same. In the Kremlin, there are the same people, and this KGB agent who is against the whole democratic world and we need to resist and we need to support Ukraine despite anything.
Two cameras are working. The left side camera is working, the right side camera is working. Both cameras are working. The device monitor is working. It displays the engine check data and the navigation map display.
Most modern armed vehicles for the Ukrainian army have been presented at the Kharkiv armored vehicle plant. This is only a part of all the innovations which have been applied to a T-64 BM2 battle tank after a major overhaul. According to the experts of Ukроборонпром state concern, the machine was modified more than 30 times since the start of hostilities in Donbass. Now this 46-ton combat vehicle is supposed to break through fortifications, tactical support and destroy enemy firing points.
This Panzer has such a thing. It seems that it's just a part of the body, but actually it is an armored plate which protects the fuel tank. Not everyone understands. If you bring up the camera and look here, you see a gun box protected by the same steel that makes up the main armor of the vehicle. It protects the machine gunner.
High level of protection, engine power and competitiveness on the market. These are the characteristics that technologists of the Kharkiv armor plant applied to the T-64 BM2 tank.
We have modified the transmission and put inside a more powerful engine 6TD. It has more horsepower than the previous one.
Last year, companies that make up the Ukроборонпром have transferred to the armed forces of Ukraine more than 3,000 units of heavy armored vehicles. Most part of them originate from factories here in Kharkiv.
We have a production increase in 24% since the last year, and it's not connected to the panic and different scenarios that might happen in our country. This is connected to my direct orders from the President of Ukraine. He told me to develop the production and to create new contemporary means of arms and vehicles for our defense forces.
The workers told us that they have all the defense orders from the state scheduled for year 2022. The instruction from the government is to produce 4 variants of modified T-64 tanks to supply Ukrainian military.
All of them will be variants from 2022. Since we have some suggestions generated by our soldiers, we incorporated their combat experience to make our products better every year.
Ukraine also had to buy southern parts from Russia before, in order to construct T-64 combat machines. Herman Smetanin also claimed that absolutely all parts for tank production are now of a Ukrainian origin. Reported by Pavlo Shtelmach, Natalia Bilokudrya, UATV News.